The first 1,000 miles on a motorcycle are huge in the development of a rider. Some riders go on after that 1,000 miles and further develop their skills. Some riders never develop past what they learn in those first 1,000 miles and actually increase their risk on the road. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Well, this week on MCrider, we'll discuss what I wish I had known during that first 1,000 miles on a motorcycle as a new rider. So I originally got my motorcycle license when I was 14 years old. Back then, no formal training was required. In fact, a police officer walked to the alley with me in Blytheville, Arkansas, told me to ride to one end of the alley, do a U-turn and ride back without putting my feet down, and stop at the painted line on the pavement. I did that, and I was ushered back into the police station and got my license. It all took about 30 minutes, not counting the written test. So I won't count that experience as my initial 1,000 miles on the road. But as an adult, I went back to the DMV to get what was now my expired M endorsement on my license. This time I took the MSF class, even though it was still not required here in the state of Texas at that time. But I took it anyway, got my license back for the second time. Most new riders fresh out of an MSF class still have a healthy dose of fear. Excessive fear is not a good thing for a rider, but a healthy dose of fear or caution can be a good thing. It can keep a rider from overriding their skill set. It causes us not to take unnecessary chances, and it causes us to respect the road and respect the motorcycle. So the first thing I wish I had done in my first 1,000 miles is to allow my confidence to grow, but my riding skill to grow in unison with it. Anything we do on a regular basis begins to settle into a routine, riding a motorcycle included. So when I first got my license back as an adult, I rode after work and on weekends. I tried as much as possible to control the riding environment I was in to avoid some of the crazy traffic you'll find here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Later, somewhere around that 1,000-mile mark, I started commuting on my motorcycle. Commuting on my motorcycle went fine for a couple of years until one day suddenly it didn't go fine. A car cut into my lane, hit the brakes, and I avoided it by locking up the front tire, causing the motorcycle to crash. Now, legally, you could say that car was at fault, or at least a contributing factor in the crash. But my overconfidence and lack of skills training were an even bigger factor, in my opinion. Somewhere around that 1,000-mile mark, if a rider has not had any incidents, they start to think, I got this. And as soon as that happens, a rider needs to be on the lookout, because you can ride for 1,000 miles and develop your mental calm, but your skills don't necessarily grow with your confidence. Mentally, I was a calm rider, but skill-wise, I was a rider waiting for that one car to pull in front of me before I crashed. It was only a matter of time and circumstance. At that 1,000-mile mark, I started accepting more risk as a rider. I don't mean I was riding irresponsibly, but I was commuting to work, so I rode in heavy traffic on fast-moving roads, and this alone increased the risk environment I was riding in. The problem is my skills did not increase as I increased my risk. In fact, my life-saving skills probably decreased during that first 1,000 miles. In the MSF class, I had to do a few things that are fundamentals of riding in order to get my license. Things like emergency braking, swerving, and even though it's not technically in the MSF curriculum, I think another mandatory emergency skill is a brake and escape. But I had practiced none of this since leaving the MSF class, not even once that I remember. So for well over 1,000 miles, I got better at stopping and starting from a stop sign, going around corners at road speed, and generally riding in a straight line. As time went on, I thought, I've got this. Then a car pulled in front of me, I locked the tires up, and I had the harsh realization that I didn't have this. I think a rider with some road experience but no continued practice or training is probably one of the most dangerous riders on the road, because the thing is, you're either riding or you're training to develop your skills, but you are not doing both at the same time. I've heard riders say with pride that they've ridden X number of miles and never had a crash. The day before my crash, I probably would have said, I've ridden about 7,500 miles with no incidents. I would have attributed the lack of crashes to my riding skill, but the reality was time and circumstance had not caught up with me yet, and it was just a matter of time. It's natural that our fears will decrease as we continue to ride, but we have to replace that natural fear with an increase in skill, or we become an out-of-balance rider. An out-of-balance rider is a rider with high confidence but no real avoidance skills on a motorcycle. Riding to and from work does not develop the life-saving skills you need to avoid a crash. Only practice and training do that. So the second thing I wish I had known at the 1,000-mile mark is it was time to follow up training, or at the very least, some focused and dedicated practice time on a parking lot. In my crash, I totaled my motorcycle and I broke my collarbone. So I was on the sideline for a few weeks waiting for everything to heal up and saving some money to buy another motorcycle. That gave me some time to think about the crash that I had had and how I can avoid a similar outcome in the future. The answer for me was training. As soon as I got another motorcycle, I took the basic rider class again. I followed that up with an intermediate class, a police skills class, a track day, a total control class. I even rode to Oklahoma and spent 2 nights in a hotel in order to take a 2-day class that they were offering in Oklahoma City. Basically, anywhere I could go to take a class, I was there. But it was just prior to becoming a riding instructor where I think my skills grew the most in the shortest amount of time, and that was going to a parking lot and practicing on my own all of the skills that I was learning in the formal classes. I didn't spend hours on the parking lot, a few minutes here, maybe 30 minutes there, working on the fundamentals and all the things that you can find in the field guide, just like this. I believe the fastest way to grow as a rider is not an 8-hour session once a month in a parking lot, but a 15-minute session 5 days a week in a parking lot. Grab your field guide and open your phone if you're a member and open up the field guide and go out for 15 minutes and work on a particular skill. What I did in my training sessions was I worked 5 minutes on emergency braking every session, followed by 10 minutes working on a different skill like U-turns, cornering, swerving, or a brake and escape. It's not the length of time of the practice session as much as it is the number of practice sessions per month that made the biggest difference for me. So maybe you're where I was. You took a new rider class and now you've ridden for several thousand miles crash-free. Maybe you're also like me and you attribute your miles of crash-free riding to your own skills. But if you're also like me and you haven't practiced your crash avoidance skills in a controlled environment, you're probably waiting on the right circumstance before you crash. The best way to avoid this is by letting your confidence and your skill grow at the same time, by more in-person training, and by building on that training with the tools offered at MCrider. You can become a member, get access to the digital version of MCrider. At certain levels of membership, you'll also get a free field guide, just like this, sent directly to you. Or you can go to mcrider.com/books, and you can order either one of the books that I've got offered on road strategy or road skills that will help you increase your skills as a rider and help you avoid the same mistakes that I've made in the past. Till next week, guys, it's Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road. If you enjoyed this video, please consider becoming a member of MCrider. You get access to the forums and the field guide and a whole lot more. All the details can be found at mcrider.com/member.